Hi, this is Alicia Bowling with Creative Laughter TV Beyond Logic podcast. Today our guest is a psychic medium, astrologer, and a tarot card reader. Her compassion stems not only here but globally, and it's my pleasure to welcome Angie to the show. Hi, Angie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. So tell everybody, you're like actually my first tarot card reader. I mean, I have a lot of different kind of people, but your tarot card readings are really, really cool. But tell everybody how you kind of grew up. Did you grow up psychic?
Well, I think all of us are empathic when we come to this life. I feel it's really when we're conformed into what's real and what isn't real, that part of the right brain starts to become smaller and smaller and smaller. But essentially, my exposure to tarot began as a young girl. My mom is a tarot reader, and I used to watch her develop her own spiritual abilities and her develop her own intuition and her kind of paying attention to the divination of spirit and her intuition.
Well, we talked once about the imaginary friends thing. So you say you're right brain, left brain. So the kids that are growing up and going to their parents and saying, hey, mom, I just talked to this girl. Her name's Anna, and describing her. And the parents are like, okay, that's your imaginary friend. What do you say to people when your children come to you with those type of things? Is it really imaginary friend or is it spirit?
Children are incredibly receptive. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and to her, those are very real. The best example I can give is children experience energy dynamics far greater than we can understand as adults. It's the simple understanding of that is sometimes you don't always have to say what's happening. Children just instinctively know. Right. So I'll use myself in this example. I'm divorced. My daughter was 2 years old when that process started, and we never argued in front of our daughter, but she was well aware of the dynamics that were shifting in her life. And so for me, I think, yes, that is very real, that people do receive messages, whether it's visual, you can see it or you can hear it or you can feel it. We're all receptive, but children especially, because they live so much in the present moment. So much of their world is right brain oriented. And it's really when we as adults choose to let it go and let unlimited potential happen that we can begin to tap into that sort of connection.
Yeah, it's amazing because you were saying to me at a very young age, you knew you want to be a humanitarian and a service to people. And I'm thinking, wow, at 5 years old, like, how do you even think like that? Like, how did that come about? What did you feel? How did you know that?
I think in my own life, I became a caregiver, archetyped of my family at a very young age. I found myself, both of my parents were starting their own businesses. And so I was kind of the one to take care of my brothers and sisters and make sure that their needs were being met. I grew up in El Paso, Texas, and I remember my mom driving across the border to get her braces done. And I remember at such a profound age wondering why children my age weren't in school. And that just resonated with me on a human level, that when I was 15, I started crossing the border and taking clothes that I grew out of or food that I knew other people would eat. And so, yeah, for me, humanitarian work and just even the understanding of human connection came at a very, very young age.
Wow, that's incredible. That really is. So when you went to high school, how did that carry on? Did you do things in high school? Like, were you a really great student, or did the psychic stuff kind of take over and you were more, working with your classmates, giving them readings?
Oh, goodness. I was socially awkward until about Who am I kidding? I'm still socially awkward.
Aw.
It's okay. I like my social awkwardness. I really didn't start embracing the journey that I was on until very, very, very recent. Tarot had always been, I have an altar in my home, and tarot had been part of my personal practice and with some of my friends, but I didn't start becoming more receptive to the messages I was receiving until things fell apart and I was kind of forced to accept where I was going and what was happening.
Did part of this have to do with your divorce?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
So, and by the way, everyone, you need to know she's in her early 30s. This isn't like somebody who's older. As you're telling these stories, they're probably going, what's the age frame? No, this is a young person still. So tell them the story about, your husband and how, that whole thing went about, and the story about your daughter when you moved. That was super cool.
Yeah, sure. So, my ex-husband is a wonderful person. He is a very present father, and watching him grow and become his own person has been an incredible blessing. But the reality is that we weren't a good fit. Our personalities are significantly different. Our lifestyles are significantly different. Even the way we parent is significantly different. And, we were raised in completely different religious backgrounds. And so for him, me having an altar made him uncomfortable. Even now,
right.
I go to a school of shamanic studies in Portland, and I go to pick up our daughter and she's all in. She's like, tell me everything you learn, because to her, that's still real. But to him, that makes him very uncomfortable. And so, the reality was we just weren't a good fit for each other. And an example of how different we parent, I believe if my daughter is curious about something, then we can open that doorway. I won't push anything on her, nothing of that sort. And we were moving back from Hood River, a town about 45 miles east, back into Portland. And before he had come to pick her up, he had driven up to Portland to come and pick her up for the weekend. Before that, we were preparing to move, and I said, okay, I want you to make a list of things that you really liked about this place, and we're going to take that list physically with us, and make a list of the things that you didn't like about Hood River, and we're going to physically leave that here. And she was completely on board with this. She said, yes, absolutely. And so at that time, he had come into our apartment, and he was waiting for her, and she came running in and she said, Mama, I finished my list of things that I didn't like about Hood River. And I said, great. What do you want to do? What do you want to do with this? And she said, well, we can bury it and it can grow into something new, or we can burn it and sprinkle the ashes and it'll grow into something new. And I said, okay, what resonates with you? And she said, I want to burn it and sprinkle the ashes. And I said, great, let's do that. And I got up and we did that. But he looked over at me, and it was kind of almost this look of like, what are you teaching our daughter, Angie? Right. There's that fear and that skepticism almost. And, it's and that's okay. It's okay to be different. But yeah, that's kind of when I started embracing the journey that I'm on now, is with the death of many aspects of myself.
So did this, because it's so different, and I know how those guys are that just like don't believe it. Does that cause a rift in the relationship, or is he lenient enough to let you parent the way you want when she's with you, and he parents the way he wants when she's with him?
Well, we're both learning that that's not working at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's not working. There has to be some consistency, and there has to be some common ground for both of us. I accept that he is his own person and he has his own rules and his own boundaries and his own expectations. And his connection with her is just as important as mine. So on my end, I don't try to project anything and I just kind of embrace it. He's been a little bit more receptive towards taking some of my suggestions and vice versa. I'm completely open to anything that he can offer me to help support her, because at this point, I decided when I had a child that it was no longer about me. It's about her. And so at this point, I'll do whatever it takes to facilitate her growth and make sure that she's loved and supported and heard and cared for.
So through all this psychic stuff, has he ever asked you a question or asked you for a reading or anything like that? Because, it's always that person that you eat with and they said, no, I don't want anything. I'm not hungry. But the minute the food comes or eating off your plate, same concept. Has he ever done that?
No, but we actually had a very interesting interaction on Friday a couple days ago. We were talking about this practicum camping trip I have with my shamanic school. And I said, I think putting everything aside, I think you would really appreciate this school. And he kind of laughed and he said, I don't do anything religious. And I said, oh, it's not religious at all. And he said, I don't know how I feel about that. And I said, well, how would you feel if I told you I already know things about you? And he said, what do you know about me? And I said, I see you getting married again. And his energetic field went from like this big grid, like I could see this grid around him of white. And after I said that, it just kind of all closed in on itself. And he shut himself off completely after that. So I kind of walked away from that situation feeling like maybe I overstepped my boundaries a little bit. But I also feel, that's part of his journey is accepting, opening himself up to the possibility of anything, even him
he
being
did
happy.
Ask. Be careful what you ask for. You're right?
Yeah.
So now you're a young woman, you're pretty. So are you back out there? Are you dating? Is it weird for you, especially now that you've really come into your gift? Because I have so many psychics tell me, especially the young ones, because, they're a little more open about it, how they're sitting across from the table and they're like, all of a sudden they're seeing all these bad mannerisms they don't like. And they see, that they're cheating. They have a bunch of people around them. Is that like an issue for you? Are you back on the saddle, so to speak?
Back on the saddle. I've never heard that expression.
Yeah, that's because I'm 1,000 years old. And after I said it, I said, oh my God, Alicia, you just dated yourself. Yes.
Right now I am open to meeting someone. I can tell based on somebody's energetic exchange, whether or not it is worth continuing or exploring. I have received messages about people coming in or how something is supposed to be. And at this point, I'm just open to whatever experiences and frequencies are in alignment with where I'm currently at.
Okay, this has got to be super fun for you. So are you on any of the dating apps? Bumble, what's Dumble, I don't know. All those dating apps.
I tried one of those and it wasn't my cup of tea. I felt like in a way it was kind of you putting your best self out there. But to answer your question, yes, I am currently on a dating app.
And so my question is, because I would love to have this superpower. So as you're swiping and looking and everything, can you just pick stuff up off them and you're like, sorry, swipe. Do you feel energy from them? Who you want to kind of like leave around, who you don't?
Yeah, so I like looking at someone's eyes. I feel like their eyes can tell me everything about their energetic dynamics. I was on an app where it was kind of like the swipe left, swipe right thing. That's not my cup of tea at all. And since
that's Tinder, right?
I feel like that's more for like a quick, I don't even know how to say it. I feel like
Oh my God, I know what you're totally going to say, because I always say that's the sex app. That's the one that all the people go on just because they want to have sex. I swear, it's true.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear anyone talk about that, they're like, oh yeah, she was hot. I'm going to call her. She's going to have sex with me. I'm just like, oi.
Yeah, that doesn't resonate with me. I prefer connection. And so I luckily found an app that seems to resonate with what I'm looking for. And so far, it's 1,000 times better. I'm not actively looking, though. I'm just kind of allowing whatever to come because, you know, it for me, it falls into the idea of whatever is meant for me will come to me and it'll be easy. And that's how I know it's in alignment for me. You know, when it's...
Yeah, you know, we talked about that. And I love that. Everyone needs to hear that. You need to say this loud and clear, because you had told me that when there's that push and pull and there's that struggle, that, you know, and it's not in alignment, like you're saying, and it's not flowing, it's probably not the right relationship, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, so a lot of the work that I do on a energetic and physical body, I do the dragon's breath exercise before we begin the reading. And that's to clear any stagnant energy that's stuck in your body. But most of the people that I work with, I ask them, what does your body tell you? Is the energy tight and restricted, or is it open and fluid and free? Because 9 times out of 10, your body is signaling to you what is in alignment with where you're at and what isn't. But we are so distracted by our jobs, our families, social media, life, that we forget to kind of check in. And so, yeah, when something is in alignment with you, there is no hustle, because what's meant for you will come to you. And it really is that easy. When you know, and when you don't know, you don't know.
You know, I worked with a psychic once, and do you believe this is true? She said to make a wish list of the man you want. And, you know, be careful how you put it and word it, because, you know, if you're a certain religion and you want a certain religion, you have to make sure that you have all those intricate details in there. So do you believe in making that wish and hanging on to that?
So after I had gotten divorced, I wrote a list of the qualities of the type of person that I would want to manifest. And since being divorced, I have dated a couple on occasion, and that person was really close to who I had written down. When I began the School of Shamanic Studies, the message came through that I needed to let all of that go and just trust that the next person who is meant for me will resonate at my level. And so that's currently where I'm at.
Oh, yeah. I was waiting for the end of the list thing. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I tried the list thing, and you know, it does. I do believe in manifestation.
So you believe in fate? What's going to be is going to be, whether you write a list or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, whatever's happening internally gets projected, attracted, and reflected externally of us. Right. Mm-hmm. And if I'm wanting, you know, I have to be what I want to attract, essentially is what I'm saying. So yeah, my next person will resonate at my level, and I don't need to make a list.
Well, you know, I had this one friend, he cracks me up. He had sent me all these morbid messengers on Messenger, about psychics and scamming and this and that. And when he finally sent me the 5th one about Sylvia Brown, who would screw her own family members, and she's dead, by the way, I was just like, okay, something's wrong. So I call him up, and he's all in a to-do because a psychic told him by February he'd be in France with a new guy and all this crazy shit. And so he's so disturbed, and now he believes it's very scientifical and all psychics are wrong. And I just laughed at him, and I said, look, you know, I would say his name, but I'll be good. Give a big shout out. You know, I told him, I said, you have to learn your lessons. If you don't learn your lessons, then the things that are supposed to come to you can't come to you. Am I right about this?
You are. Yeah. And
The words can come out of your mouth, but that doesn't necessarily mean you want it.
well, and so there's a couple of things about that. Time is linear to begin with. And it all depends on the lessons and how open and fluid and where you're at in your life. But another part of it has to come with, what is your current navigating or operating system? Is it a place of lack or is it a place of love? Because if you're always in lack, you're going to continue to attract lack. But if you're in a place of, I was telling someone the other day, I am 100% awesome and I welcome the same into my life, And so
is that like that? I forgot what this one psychic, I think toothbrush love, she called it, where you sit in front of the mirror and you say, I am this, I am that, I am worthy, I am love, blah, 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 blah. So do you believe those words and saying those words out loud does project that? Or is it something you truly, truly have to feel? It can't just be words out of your mouth.
Well, your words are your commands, essentially. I actually do have, if you ever come to my house, I have love notes written to my daughter everywhere. And right next to the mirror, I do have the I ams. And it's everything that people should recognize about themselves, because again, whatever's happening internally gets reflected, attracted, and projected externally. And if our own self-talk is always focused on the negative, then that's your frequency. You'll continue to attract at that frequency. And so I personally believe in positive affirmation. I believe that we are all beings essentially of light. And why not love yourself unconditionally?
Right. I agree with that. Well, your tarot card readings are really interesting. For anyone who has not had a reading with Angie, get one. It's very, very cool. So she does it through a YouTube channel and then she sends it to you. But the cool thing is it's like you're there. Like when I was watching mine and you were doing the breathing thing and you went into the read, I literally felt like you were right across the room from me. It was wild. So tell everybody about your readings, because a lot of people I know say, oh, well, I want a reading in person. I said, but no, you don't understand. They pick up your energy. It's really you choosing the card that she's picking. So explain to everyone so they understand. So even if they're far away and they have a phone reading with you, they're still getting the right reading.
Sure. So that reminds me, I was doing a reading for a friend at a coffee shop a couple months ago. And this woman, you could tell that she was curious, but she was a little skeptical. And she eventually made her way over to us and asked what we were doing. And I said, oh, I'm reading his cards. And I said, would you like to draw a card? And she looked at me and said, you mean I randomly pick a card? And I kind of laughed a little bit and said, oh, sweetie, this isn't random. You know exactly what you're picking. And she didn't believe that. But then every card I drew for her resonated completely. And so I believe in energy dynamics. You and I having this conversation is an exchange of energy. And so every reading I do, even on YouTube, I ground myself first and connect to that frequency. And so really, it's also interesting because I get so many comments of people who say they randomly came across my page. And I have to tell them, no, this wasn't random. Our frequencies were in alignment and we attracted each other. And that's...
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Thank you.
I do. I really think that's cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
So what happens to the shitty people that are attracted to you? What's that about?
So I actually had a message come in about a month ago that somebody would be coming in and would challenge me. And I accepted that message. Most of the messages I receive, I accept. I say, okay, I'm up for this. Let's do this. And sure enough, she manifested, and I was able to give her the assistance that she needed For me, tarot is another connection to source. And it really is a privilege and an honor for me to be of service to people, irregardless if they're a challenge or not. For me, I just love being in service. And she didn't like the message that came through for her. I don't believe in projecting my own things. I just deliver the messages as they come through. So for me, it was a very excellent lesson in setting boundaries and trusting the messages I was receiving. And for her, I can't tell you what the lesson is. I mean, I guess it has to, actually, no, I can't tell you. It's reflection.
I know you said something very interesting, and I like this, and I think everybody should hear this, because I'm a big not fan of Yelp, because everybody and his brother who's having a bad day gets on there and doesn't even talk about the food or the whatever. They're just venting this crazy shit. And I'm sure it happens to psychics a lot. But you had made this comment that I'm not living my life by your standards. And I like that. So explain to everybody what you mean by that.
Yeah, I don't live my life based on what somebody else thinks I should be saying or doing. And I think that's, this reminds me of your dating question. I don't hide myself. I don't live small. Why should I hide myself? Why should I conform and say, oh, I on my online dating app, it says very much I'm a tarot reader. I do shamanic work. I do Reiki. I journey for people. I am not meant to live small. Neither are you. We are beings of light that are meant to expand to what's available to us. And so, I don't live my life by other people's standards or ideas of what I should be doing, because it's my life, and it's pretty awesome.
It is. I find you fantastic. And you really are such a wonderful little spirit. And I want you to tell everybody about your volunteer work, because really, I mean, it's one thing to donate money. It's another thing to donate time.
Yeah.
And that's when you really show the true love. So tell everybody about your volunteer work. And if anyone could, donate, help out, what would they do?
Sure. So 7 years ago, I started my own volunteer-run nonprofit. It is called So They Can Thrive. And since then, I have built 2 schools in Uganda, Africa. Last year, we were supporting 432 children. We pay for their education, their tuition, books, uniforms, medical care, 2 meals a day, and clean water. We employ doctors, nurses, teachers, seamstresses, farmers, cooks. We started a city council there, or a council of elders. And in October, I actually spent my last birthday in Bangladesh working as a EMT medic at a refugee camp. And while I was there, I built a makeshift clinic that is still serving the refugee population escaping genocide. And we serve 200 to 550 refugees a day. So me personally, I've known, again, that humanitarian work that is who I am. That is my life purpose, is to be of service to others. And often I go to shows out here in Portland, and because people will tell me, oh, I wish I could do something like, or, oh, I've always wanted to do something like that. But there's always the but. And
right. That's why I'm saying it's one thing to donate money. It's one thing to say, oh, yeah, I'm going to come help you do that. But it's another thing to actually go do it.
Yeah. And again, that for me, I live my life by my own standards, like if I listened to what everybody said, if I listened to everybody who told me I was crazy for wanting to build a school in Africa, I wouldn't have 2 schools in Africa,
That's exactly correct.
Because everyone thought I was crazy. You know how many people told me no? And it was when I stopped listening to the people who said no, and I started saying, you know what, I'm going to do this. And if you're with me, cool. And if you're not with me, cool. The Angie train to Funtown is leaving the station. Right. If you're with me, great. And if you're not with me, that's fine too. Step aside and let me do my work. Let me stand in my power.
Well, if people want to donate to this and help out, how can they do that?
Sure. So you could, I invite you to visit our website. It is sotheycanthrive.org. We also have a Facebook page, So They Can Thrive, and an Instagram page. Knowledge is power. Awareness is everything. And I personally will say, believe in yourself to know that you can literally manifest anything, because one person can really make a difference.
Well, that's a wonderful way to end this podcast. You were amazing. You know what, everybody? You also have to check her out on her YouTube. She has a YouTube channel,
yeah.
The Eye Inside, and she does astrology readings. So she'll do, monthly Libra or whoever, and it's really, really fun. And she's one of those hidden away gems, word of mouth. So if you want to book a reading with her, go to her email, theyeinside82@gmail.com, book a reading with her. She's really cool. And Angie, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
I can't thank you enough. I appreciate you and I love you.
Aw, thanks, Angie. And don't forget to check out our website. We have great Psychics of the Month and all sorts of fun stuff going on. But everybody, remember, you create your life, you create your future. This is Alicia Bowling with Beyond Logic.